Sunday morning. Pancakes on the griddle, kids at the table, and you reach for the bottle you've reached for your whole life. The one with the little maple leaf, or the cabin, or the kind-faced woman on the front. You tip it, and a slow amber ribbon comes down over the stack. And for 1 second, you feel like a good parent handing your kids a small piece of a New England forest. You are handing them colored corn syrup, thickened with gum, and flavored by a seed from a factory in New Jersey. There is not one drop of maple tree in that bottle. You didn't do anything wrong. The bottle was built to be misread, and it has been doing its job on your family for 3 generations. We pulled the labels on 8 syrups from the pancake aisle. Hungry Jack. Great value from Walmart. Mrs. Butterworth's. The brand that used to be Aunt Jemima. Log Cabin. And 3 more you'll want to write down, because they're the ones that passed. 5 of these bottles contain exactly as much maple as an empty jar. Not less maple than promised. 0. And here's the part that'll sit with you all day. The bottle that fails the hardest isn't the cheapest one on the shelf. It's the one that brags on the front that it's all natural, with no high fructose corn syrup. The bottle you reach for when you're trying to do the right thing. It has just as much maple as all the others. None. Quick one before we start. Type the syrup on your breakfast table right now, the brand, and the biggest word on the front, in the comments. By the end, you'll know if there's a maple tree anywhere in that bottle. 4 words are going to do the work tonight. Table syrup, standard of identity, fenugreek, and characterizing flavor. Learn them once, and this aisle can never fool you again, because the front of the bottle pours maple. The back of the bottle pours the word flavored. We judged all 8 the same way. Ingredient panels, federal definitions, court filings. Paper only, no guessing. Counting down, worst at the end. Number 5. First, the honest part, because this channel doesn't do panic. Nothing in this video is going to hurt your body. Corn syrup won't poison you. Fenugreek is a cooking spice people have eaten for 4,000 years. Nobody on this list is dangerous. They're just charging you maple money and borrowing maple's good name for a bottle of sweetened water with none of it inside. The crime here is fraud, not poison. The numbers you're about to hear come from the ingredient panels printed on the bottles themselves, from the Food and Drug Administration's own definition of the word maple, and from lawsuits filed in open court. Every claim tonight has a label or a docket behind it. One more thing before the countdown. For most of your life, the story was simple. Maple syrup is the fancy stuff. Pancake syrup is the everyday stuff. And the only real difference is the price. Keep that story in mind. Watch what the ingredient list does to it. Because here's what that story hides. Real maple is one of the most expensive foods a farm can make. It takes 40 gallons of sap, boiled down over a fire, to make 1 single gallon of syrup, collected in a window that lasts about 6 weeks a year, when the nights freeze and the days thaw. A gallon of the real thing runs $40 and up. Corn syrup costs pennies. So the entire aisle you're standing in exists to solve one problem. How do you sell the feeling of maple without paying for the tree? 5 of these bottles are the answer. Number 5. Hungry Jack. Let's start with the most honest liar on the shelf, because credit where it's due. The butter-flavored bottle from Hungry Jack doesn't actually put the word maple in its name. It says butter-flavored syrup, and that at least is true. There's no maple claim to break. So why is it here at all? Because meet your first term, table syrup. That's the real category. Corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, water, a little cellulose gum to thicken it, caramel color to make it amber, and flavors. Natural and artificial, to make it taste like breakfast. That's what table syrup is, top to bottom, and it is the honest name for every bottle on this failing list. Hungry Jack's ingredient panel is exactly that. Corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup are the first 2 things in the bottle. Maple is nowhere. And that's the quiet trick even the honest one is running. It doesn't need to say maple because it's already sitting in the maple's chair. It goes on the same pancakes, at the same breakfast, in the same amber pour, at a fraction of the cost. And it lets your muscle memory fill in the word maple all by itself. It didn't lie to you. It just stood where the truth used to stand and let you assume. That's the shallow end of this pool. The bottles from here down don't leave the lying to your muscle memory. They do it themselves. Number 4. Great value from Walmart. Same recipe, no name to hide behind. The store brand bottle reads corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, water, cellulose gum, caramel color, and flavor. A panel almost identical to the last one, wearing a different label. 0 maple, at the largest scale in the country, on the shelf of the biggest grocer in America. Here's your second term, and it's the one that unlocks the whole aisle: standard of identity. Federal law actually defines what maple syrup is. It's written down. 21 CFR 168.140. And it says maple syrup must be at least 66% solids, derived solely from the sap of a maple tree. That's the legal wall. And every bottle on this failing list is standing on the wrong side of it. That's the real reason none of them say maple syrup on the front. They can't. It would be against the law. So they say syrup, and they let a picture and a pour do the rest. And notice who's the least protected here. This is the bottle in the budget cart, bought by the family counting every dollar, trusting the store brand precisely because they don't have money to waste on doubt. Nobody flips the great value jug in the aisle. It has no reputation to defend, no lawsuit to fear, no famous name anyone's watching. Which is exactly why it can pour the cheapest version of the trick and never get asked a single question. But cheap and anonymous isn't the worst of it. The next bottle spends real money to lie to you, and it does it without printing a single false word. Number 3, Mrs. Butterworth's. This is the one I told you to hold on to, because Mrs. Butterworth's runs a con that doesn't live in the ingredient list at all. Look at the bottle. It's shaped like a woman. A warm, round, grandmotherly figure, apron and all. That shape is the entire pitch. It doesn't say homemade. It doesn't say from scratch. It doesn't say maple. It just stands on your table looking like somebody's grandma made it in a farmhouse kitchen, and it lets your heart write a story your eyes never checked. Now turn the grandmother around. The very first ingredient, before the corn syrup, before anything, is high fructose corn syrup. It is the sweetest, cheapest sugar in the industry, and it is the #1 thing inside that cozy little figure. There is no maple. There is no farmhouse. There is a food plant, a mold shaped like a kindly woman, and a flavor cooked up in a lab. And that flavor brings us to your third term, the strangest one in this whole video: fenugreek. The maple taste in these bottles doesn't come from a tree. It comes from a compound called sotalon, and sotalon comes from the seed of a plant called fenugreek, a legume, a curry spice. It is so powerful you can taste it at a few parts per billion. Roast the seed, pull the compound, drop a whisper of it into corn syrup, and your tongue swears it's standing in a sugar shack in Vermont. The maple in Mrs. Butterworth's was never in a forest. It was in a seed. Silence is the weapon here. The bottle never makes a claim it would have to defend. It makes a shape, and it lets you do the lying to yourself. That's the most patient con on the shelf, and it's about to get more expensive. Number 2, Pearl Milling Company, the one you knew your whole life as Aunt Jemima. In 2021, this brand did something almost no brand ever does. It changed its own name. It scrubbed a racist caricature off the label after more than a century, gave itself a new name, a new look, a fresh start. The company that owns it, PepsiCo, put real money and real attention into fixing what was on the front of that bottle. And here's the turn. They fixed the name. They never fixed the syrup. Turn the new, cleaner Pearl Milling bottle around, and it's the same recipe it always was. Corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, water, gum, color, and lab flavor. Zero maple, before the rename and after. When a company decides to change everything about how a product presents itself and leaves the actual contents untouched, that tells you exactly where they believe the product lives. Not in the bottle, on the label, which is your fourth term, and the master key to this entire aisle: characterizing flavor. Under federal rules, a company is allowed to name a product after a flavor it does not contain, as long as the word flavored is somewhere on the package and the artificial flavor is disclosed in the fine print. That's it. That's the whole loophole. It's why maple-flavored syrup is a perfectly legal phrase for a bottle with no maple in it. The front sells you the flavor. The word flavored, hiding in smaller type, is the legal alibi. And PepsiCo's rename never touched it, because the loophole was never the problem. The loophole is the product. And that finally brings us to the bottle that fails the hardest, the one wearing the halo. Number 1, Log Cabin. Look at everything this bottle is doing. The name is a sugar house, a log cabin in the woods, the exact image real maple sells. The jug is shaped like the jug's real Vermont maple comes in. And across the front, in the calm, confident font of a brand that wants you to relax, it tells you it's all natural, with no high fructose corn syrup. This is the bottle for the careful shopper. The one you pick up when you're reading labels, trying to do better, trying to buy the honest version. It is dressed, head to toe, as the real thing. Turn it around. The first ingredient is corn syrup. Not maple, corn syrup, with sugar right behind it. It's true that Log Cabin skips the high fructose kind, and it makes sure you know. But no high fructose corn syrup is not the same sentence as some maple syrup, and the bottle is counting on you to hear the one you were hoping for. There is no maple in Log Cabin. There never stopped being no maple in Log Cabin. And unlike the quieter names on this list, this one has a paper trail. In 2012, Log Cabin's maker, Pinnacle Foods, was hit with a class action in Vermont, alleging that the all-natural labeling on this exact product was misleading under state consumer protection law. That wasn't the first knock, either. A year earlier, maple producers in Vermont and New Hampshire had petitioned the FDA over that same all-natural claim, and the company quietly pulled the caramel color from the natural line to settle the fight. Vermont's officials said it was still misleading even after the change. Two separate challenges, one bottle, and the thing everyone was fighting about was never in dispute. There's no maple in there. The only argument was whether you should have known. So sit with the full shape of it. The cheapest bottle, great value, borrows maple's job. The grandmother bottle borrows maple's warmth. The renamed bottle borrows maple's history. And this one, the one that says natural, the one that says no corn syrup shortcuts, the one aimed straight at the shopper who's actually trying, borrows maple's honesty. It wears the halo of the careful choice, and underneath the halo is the same zero as all the rest. The front pours maple, the back pours flavored. Nowhere on this shelf is that truer than the bottle that works hardest to look true. So pause the countdown, because the real question isn't which bottle, it's how. How does a whole aisle sell you maple, at maple prices, on maple mornings, with no maple in any of it, and stay completely legal doing it? Go back 100 years to when maple was an object. A tree, a tap, a bucket, a fire, a farmer boiling 40 gallons down to one over 3 sleepless nights. To fake that, you'd have to fake the whole farm. It was too much work, too much land, too much winter. The real thing protected itself by being hard. Then the post-war kitchen changed the rules. The same convenience wave that gave America instant coffee and the TV dinner came for the breakfast table too, and the pitch was never quality. It was speed and price. Within a single generation, most Americans had never once tasted syrup that came out of a tree. The imitation didn't beat the real thing. It replaced the memory of it, so there was nothing left to compare against. And that's when the food industry solved the two things that made maple hard and kept the one thing that made it valuable: the word. First, they solved the flavor. That fenugreek seed you met at number 3 didn't just flavor one bottle, it industrialized the entire smell of maple. The proof is a story people in New York have been telling for 20 years. Every so often, the whole of Manhattan suddenly smells like a pancake breakfast, and for a long time, nobody knew why. It turned out to be a factory in New Jersey processing fenugreek. One plant, perfuming a city of 8 million with the smell of a Vermont sugar house, and not a single maple tree within 100 miles. Once you can bottle the smell, you don't need the forest. Then they solved the law. Remember characterizing flavor. As long as the word flavored is somewhere on the package, you can name your corn syrup after a tree it never met. The front does the selling. The fine print does the defending. It isn't a loophole they sneak through in the dark. It's the daylight the whole aisle is built in. And then there's the penalty, which is the quietest part of all. A few years ago, Donald's sold a fruit and maple oatmeal across the entire country. The maple flavor came from fenugreek, not maple. Exactly one place on earth made them answer for it: Vermont, which has 9 pages of law saying you cannot use the word maple unless there's real maple in the product. And how did the mighty settlement end? Donald's agreed that in Vermont, if you asked, they'd hand you a little packet of real maple sugar on the side. No fine that mattered. No recall. A packet, on request, in one state. Every food company in America watched that land and heard the same message. The word is nearly free, and the punishment for taking it is a packet of sugar you have to ask for. The flavor got bottled. The law left the door open, and the penalty was a shrug. Nobody had to be evil. They just had to notice that the word maple was doing all the work, and the tree was doing none of the selling. So they kept the word and let the tree go. Now let me take one wrong version of this anger off your hands, because you've probably seen the videos telling you how to spot real maple. The thick one is the real one. Trust the thick pour. That is backwards, and it'll cost you. Real maple syrup is thin. It has to be. It's concentrated tree sap and nothing else, and it runs off the spoon fast and light. The reason fake syrup is thick and glossy and clings to the pancake is cellulose gum, added on purpose to fake the body that real maple doesn't even have. So the shopper reaching for the thickest, most luxurious-looking pour is walking straight toward the gum. Thickness isn't quality. Thickness is the additive doing an impression of quality. Aim your suspicion at the ingredient list, not the pour. While the receipt's out, run the year. Say your family goes through a bottle of table syrup a month. You are buying colored, gummed, fenugreek-flavored corn syrup at a few dollars a bottle and telling yourself it's basically maple. It isn't basically maple. It's a different product with a borrowed name. And the borrowing is so smooth you've never once felt robbed, which is the entire design. Multiply that untroubled feeling by every breakfast table in the country, every Sunday, for decades. And notice the shape of the theft. It isn't that they overcharged you for what's in the bottle. Corn syrup and water and a whisper of fenugreek are worth about what they cost. The thing you actually paid for, the maple, the forest, the 40 gallons boiled down to one, was never in there to sell. You paid full price for a word. There's never been a quieter way to sell nothing than to sell it under the name of something people already love. So what should you actually pour? 3 winners, counting down, judged by the exact rule that just failed 5 bottles. Does the ingredient list satisfy the standard of identity? Maple and nothing but maple? Number 3. Coombs Family Farms. Organic maple from a network of New England family farms, and when you turn the bottle around, the ingredient list is 1 line long: maple syrup. That's it. No gum, no color, no flavor, no fine print, nothing to defend. It costs more than the corn syrup bottles and less than you're bracing for. Real maple is sweeter and stronger than the fake, so you pour less of it to get there, which quietly closes some of the gap on the receipt, and every word on it survives the flip. Number 2. Butternut Mountain Farm. A Vermont operation that's been making maple since 1963. And here's their tell. They print the grade right on the front. Grade A, and then the color class, in plain words. That's a maker inviting you to check, not hoping you won't. Real makers brag about their grade the way a distillery brags about its years, because the honesty is the product. A label proud enough to print its class is a label that has nothing hiding behind it. And number 1 isn't a brand at all. It's a single line on the back of a bottle. The real winner is any syrup whose entire ingredient list reads, start to finish, maple syrup. 1 ingredient, no passengers. The winner was never a better brand. It was the shortest ingredient list in the aisle. Find that 1 line, and every trick in this video simply disappears. No gum to fake the body, no fenugreek to fake the taste, no flavor to hide in the fine print, no lawyer on retainer explaining what natural means. 1 word. That's the whole secret. 3 kitchen tests before you go. No lab required. Test 1, the flip. Tonight, turn your bottle around and read the first ingredient. If it's corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, you're pouring table syrup, full stop. Then find the word next to maple on the front. If that word is flavored, the fine print already confessed. You just never turned it over to read it. Test 2, the fridge rule. Real maple has no preservatives, which means it can't live on a shelf. Once it's opened, it has to go in the fridge or it'll grow mold in a few weeks. So look where your syrup lives. If it's been sitting happily in the pantry for a year, that's the preservatives earning their keep. Doing a job real maple physically cannot do. Not proof all by itself, but a very loud hint. Test 3, the pour. Put a spoon of your syrup next to a spoon of real grade, a maple, and tip them both. The real one runs thin and quick and disappears into the pancake. The table syrup sits up, glossy and slow, held together by gum. Same spoon, 2 completely different stories, and your own eyes will call it before anyone tells you which is which. Just remember, compare, don't convict. 1 bottle alone proves nothing. 2 side by side proves plenty. 4 myths to leave behind. Myth 1. Grade A means top shelf and grade B means lesser. Not anymore. Since 2015, all retail maple is grade A, and the words after it, golden, amber, dark, describe color and strength, not quality. Darker isn't worse. It's just louder. Myth 2. The thick, glossy syrup is the premium one. You know this one now. Thickness is gum, and real maple runs thin. Myth 3. Maple flavored means there's at least a little maple in there. No. Characterizing flavor lets a bottle be named for a flavor it doesn't contain, as long as it whispers flavored somewhere on the back. Myth 4. If these bottles were really fake, they'd be illegal. They are. In Vermont, where the law says no maple word without maple inside, and artificial maple syrup is flatly declared deceptive. But that law stops at one state's border. Everywhere else, the loophole holds, and the only person guarding your breakfast is you. Here's the whole video in 5 seconds at the shelf. Flip the bottle. Read the first ingredient. If it's corn syrup, put it down. If the front says flavored, believe the small word, not the big one. And when in doubt, buy the bottle whose ingredient list is 1 line long. 5 seconds, once, and this aisle never fools you again. So here's what you walked away with tonight. Table syrup, standard of identity, fenugreek, characterizing flavor. 4 words, and the bottle on your breakfast table just became readable. 5 of the 8 we pulled contain no maple at all. A cheap one, an anonymous one, a grandmother-shaped one, a renamed one. And the hardest fall belonged to the bottle wearing the halo of the honest choice. Because the front pours maple, the back pours flavored. Now it's your turn. Name the syrup on your table in the comments, the brand, and the biggest word on the front. I read every single one, and the brand you name most becomes the next label we pull. And send this to the person in your life who's been pouring that same bottle over their kids' pancakes for years, certain it was basically maple. They've earned the truth, and it fits on 1 line. Real maple has exactly 1 ingredient. Everything else is just a very good costume. See you at the next test.